what is your interpretation, assessment of the plausibility of Vegas as a potential site for the Raiders?
It's funny. Like, why don't he? Hey, look, he should go play on the moon or maybe Mars.
I guess Mac Damon was up there for a little bit. He hung around. He grew plants.
I think we covered this a few weeks back. He's not going anywhere. He has zero leverage. He's going to do a 1 or 2 year lease in the crap hole that he's in. And at some point, he'll realize the best way to aid that franchise would be to try to put all of his energy into getting a partner with him who can help him build in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
They want 2 teams in the Bay Area. They don't want a team in San Antonio. They don't want a team in San Diego. And their stance on Las Vegas is pretty unequivocal. So he's going to get 23 other votes to go to Vegas. Okay, here's your relocation fee, $3 billion. Have fun, Mark. I mean, it's kind of silly, really.
Well, let me ask you this here, Jay, and in large part, I'm with you. I don't think it's truly viable. I don't think the NFL would want that. I think you're right. But from Mark's point of view, forget about what the NFL thinks, but from Mark Davis's point of view, if I could find a plot of land that's 42 acres and I've got the university kicking in, basically getting ready to build a $1 billion stadium right near the airport, why in the world, if I'm Mark Davis, wouldn't I want to go there? I don't understand.
I mean, again, it's 32. There's 32 components to this decision. You know, they split this pie pretty much equally. He's in a monopoly. He's in a cartel, and he knows it. It's why he gets the subsidy. It's why he can play in a crap hole stadium like that and still make money, even with a team that's barely won, because of the TV rights, because of the strength of 32 versus 1, which he's a part of. There's trade-offs to all that.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Kroenke. Kroenke didn't need a penny from anybody. Kroenke takes $1 billion out of his pocket and puts it in escrow, starts building on his own, doesn't need any G4 money, doesn't need a dime from the local government. How many hoops did he have to jump through to go to L.A. where the league wants to be?
Mm-hmm.
And even now, he's got to take Mark Davis or Dean Spanos with him.
Yeah.
He doesn't even get the market to himself. So they're going to give Mark Davis Vegas?
No, I guess I asked that because, and you've told us this, that the NFL doesn't really want the Raiders in L.A.
No, they love the Raiders to stay in Oakland in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Yeah, and look, they don't always get what they want, but they certainly control this process.
Yeah.
I mean, they absolutely. Now, look, does he want to just start playing? I mean, you know, does he want to file an antitrust suit? Does he want to try to take them to federal court and get tied up in all the stuff his dad did that often didn't work? I just don't see it happening. And the league's stance on Vegas, I think the league's stance on Vegas is out of date and a little bit silly. But I'm not one of the 32 people who have a say in it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And they've never wavered. Look how much money they've spent fighting these little, like, prop bets and teasers, right, in, like, Jersey and Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've spent millions and millions of dollars on lobbyists to come in and try to crush that. They're going to let Mark Davis move to Vegas? Okay.
Talking to Jason Canfora. Jason, of course, CBS Sports NFL analyst, usual Friday spot, Tiki and Tierney, CBS Sports Radio.
Jason, when does the NFL do away with the Pro Bowl? There's 131 All-Stars this year because 45 guys or 44 guys have backed out, including the entire New England Patriots Pro Bowl team. When do they get rid of this or just change it and make it a flag football game?
Well, I'll say this. When people stop watching it, I think 10 million people watched this thing last year.
Wow.
So if it's beating NBA playoff games and it's beating, you know, Major League Baseball playoff games, they're not going to stop selling it. I mean, it'll stop being viable when the metrics and the economics stop making it viable. And as long as they can sell advertising for it, and as long as they're getting that many eyeballs on it, and I don't think. I mean, look, they've tried to incentivize it with these teams, right? Irvin and picking the teams and team captains, and you know they've tried to make it look a little bit more like an exhibition game, a little bit more like sort of a sideshow than when they used to try to make it look as close to football as it can, except with no hitting. So I just look. It's supply and demand. People can't get enough football product. I don't know if it's just because. You know that, like, after this, there's only the Super Bowl, and then there's nothing for 6 months, so people just watch just to get, you know what I mean, their last fix.
I don't watch it.
Yeah.
I don't watch it either, but just Google the numbers of what this game's done the last 4 or 5 years, even as every year I get these same questions about people trying to kill it off. And then every year, you know, I don't know, 6 to 9 million people watch it.
Yeah.
Like, well.
It just frustrates me that it's still called, it's called a Pro Bowl. Teddy Bridgewater is a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Wow.
Well, and
We
that's
have
the thing.
16
They need to, I
touchdowns.
guess, change the designations where
Exactly. You know why? Because it minimizes the Pro Bowl word for those who are
really
actually
has.
all-stars.
I mean, it's been that way for a while. I mean,
Yeah.
I think All-Pro to me is the designation. Like if you're first team, second team All-Pro, that's taken very seriously. I think the guys who vote for that look at it as an honor, and they get it right more times than not. The Pro Bowl, when you got a mixture of fans and players, that's popularity. Players are voting for their guys. They know who in the locker room has a big clause for Pro Bowl. The whole thing is kind of silly.
Jason, last year at this point, obviously, we were embroiled in Deflategate leading up to the Super Bowl. I want to play something for you. Then I want to ask you a question. Go ahead, Pete.
I still stand by what I said then, that I welcome it, and it's garbage from the first day it came out, and it's still garbage today.
All right, so that's obviously Peyton Manning once again refuting the report Al Jazeera, and he did so aggressively from the get-go, and that's something we want from our athletes. When somebody is dropping something at somebody's doorstep, we don't want these like legal jargon, carefully crafted press releases. Look in the camera and tell us you didn't do anything, and we respect it and believe it a lot more. My question to you, though, is this, Jason. It seems like last year people were turning over every rock and exhausting every avenue with Deflategate, and over the course of the press conference yesterday with Peyton, he was asked one time about that. And it doesn't bother me. I kind of believe him somewhat. But it seems like there's a big discrepancy in the way Brady was pursued and the way Manning's been pursued. Very different circumstances. What's your take, though?
Well, I think a lot of the way Brady was pursued was from some of the erroneous stories that got out there that my only inclination is were leaked from somebody at the league with an agenda or otherwise. When you start hearing stuff as games are still being played, right, as the playoffs are still going on, coming out of that championship, going into a Super Bowl, and there's reports that 12 of the 13 balls were doctored to a level where they were below 75% of what you would expect the ball to look like. You know what I mean? Then I think it became the claws were out, and the league certainly we didn't hear the league coming out and saying, oh, no, that's not right. You didn't have the league making a whole lot of statements trying to keep things on the rails, and so the whole thing got off the rails. And I think it's also the Patriots, and because of Spygate and the specter of their past, that people, you don't really get the benefit of the doubt. And when the league is, stuff like that's being talked about for, I don't know, some of these pregame shows are 6, 7, 8 hours, right? And it's just on and on for 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. And then you had all the press, you had the Belichick press conference, you had all the science element to it. I mean, I just think that one was a bit of an anomaly. And Peyton's always been looked at as incredibly squeaky clean.
Yeah, but
all the league's saying is, we're still reviewing it and we're taking it seriously. And I just don't think people care. I never really
cared
about
in
the
baseball
ball thing. I thought it was a bunch of crap, but nobody.
But
do you
Jay,
think people really care about HGH in the NFL?
They care in baseball.
They absolutely do. That's my argument. They care in baseball because it's skewed a historical prism to a point where you no longer could look at the game the same way.
True. Guys
have been using steroids in the NFL since the 70s. And while anabolic steroids and some of these things that tend to tear your body apart have been somewhat systematically weaned out of the game, dude, they weren't tested. There was no clamor to test for HGH. Once in a blue moon, some senator would stump. I would write columns about it. No, we don't want to know how the sausage is made in the NFL. We expect these guys to be superheroes. We know that, like baseball, you want your baseball players to kind of look somewhat normal. When they started looking like superheroes, people got freaked out.
Yeah.
We expect superheroes in football. We expect people to do supernatural things every Sunday. We expect them to put their bodies through rigors unlike, Tiki knows, but unlike most people, you don't want to know, brother.
Yeah,
you don't want to know about Monday to Saturday in the NFL. You want to enjoy it on Sunday.
And also, Jason, it's a lot of those guys that are probably doing it are offensive linemen who have no stats that are going to affect the historical
the prism of the game is skewed by going 5 wide all the time now, and everybody throws for 4,000 yards, but that's a competitive thing. It's not a competitive balance, PED thing. And does anybody think Peyton Manning came out of that thing more buff or more ripped? He would have taken anything.
No, but I tell you, Jay, it may have saved his career. So
it may have, but they weren't testing for it.
No, I understand.
I don't know what after effects it has. No one in the league has ever been caught for it. The sample size that they test for now, once they finally got around to actually implementing a system 4 years after they said they would, is such that no one's getting caught.
I'm just surprised.
I don't think we want to know.
I think you're right. I'm just surprised, though. The fans don't want to know, but I know that the media kind of wants to know because the media wants to be able to write stories. I'm a little surprised that there was one question. Yeah.
Clay Matthews, right, is mentioned in there just as prominently, and James Harrison. I've done 1 million of these interviews in 6 weeks. No one's ever asked me about those two. What does that tell you?
Good point. Yeah, we care
No one's ever brought it up. In fact, every time I do these interviews, I go, wait. Okay, so if we're all high and mighty about Peyton Manning, these two cats were just playing in the playoffs 2 weeks ago. They're borderline Hall of Fame players. No one flinched. You know why? Because we kind of know. Like, there's a part of our mind that lets us know, like, stuff might have to happen for these guys to do that. And actually, when people get pissed off is when a guy like Shawn Merriman does get caught, and then he's out for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it isn't like, oh, good, they got him.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, I wish I could have seen him sack somebody.
I'm not going to the game now. Jason, we only have about a little less than a minute now. Greg Hardy looks like he's not going to be re-signed in Dallas because of all the partying, or really because he's an ass.
And he didn't play that well.
Exactly. But what happens to him?
Oh, he's 25, 26. He's a guy who has a history of double-digit sack numbers. It's right guy at right price. His value will continue to slide. He'll have to sign another prove-it, incentive-laden contract, but somebody's going to do it. You know what I mean? You look at a team like Atlanta. I mean, what they need at pass rush. I mean, there's 4 or 5 teams that would look at themselves as on the cusp. I don't know that I would necessarily say they are. Who I could just see them looking at it and saying, you know what, we'll structure the contract in a way that we protect ourselves from week to week. If he's given us bang for our buck, great. If he's not, we'll let him go. But he does something very few people do, so there'll always be some demand for that.
Jay,